Hello, back again. So today it's time to bake the bread. Yesterday I prepped it all and then just barely I preheated my oven to 500, and I have a stone cookie sheet underneath on the lower rack of my oven that helps the bread bake more evenly and absorbs some of the intense heat so that the bottoms of the loaves don't burn. And I have cast iron Dutch ovens. That's what I bake them in. I've tried them on cookie sheets. I've tried them in glass pans. I've tried them in other baking. I have an aluminum like roasting pan. I tried that and they just don't get that rise and that same texture. So I finally just bought the enameled cast iron. This is a 5-quart one, and I would say it's big enough for the loaves I make. This is a 6-quart one, and I like it a little bit better if I'm making a really big loaf. It just has a little bit more room and height. That's one of the only things I've really had to invest in, and I feel like it's well worth it. So the other thing though is you're supposed to score the bread. So you preheat the oven to 500 with the cast iron, with the Dutch ovens in the oven, so that right now they are really hot. I also put ceramic beads. I don't know if you can see inside there. There's ceramic blind baking beads. The point of those is just to kind of keep the bread up off of the floor of the Dutch oven, because my bottoms of my loaves were burning to where, or not burning, but just really hard, like they were hard to cut through. So you can use like a little tray that's the metal tray inside your Instant Pot. Anything, you can try the ceramic beads. I've seen people use rice, but I tried that, and after a while the rice would get really brown and you'd have to replace it. So I liked the ceramic beads. They're just something I already had. I would like to have enough to cover the whole bottom of the Dutch oven, but I have just like one package of them split between the two. Highly recommend those, and I just keep them in there. But yeah, there are other ways to bake sourdough. This is just what I have found works. So what I do is I just pull these out of the fridge, and I'm just going to carefully transfer it to the Dutch oven, and then I'm going to score them. So the reason you score, or create an ear, as some people call it, is to help the steam have somewhere to go so that the loaf just doesn't split open crazy directions. So what you do, I hope you can see this, is you just kind of, I tried using a knife. I was like determined to not have to buy a bread lame. That's what this is, Lame. This was like $7 on Amazon, so they're not horribly expensive. You can use a razor knife. I have really sharp knives, and I sharpened it, and I tried that, and it just kind of like bent the bread. It wouldn't cut through it. So this is just like a really fine razor blade. So what you do is kind of on a angle, not straight down. You make an ear is what it's called, and you just kind of cut into the dough. And there are so many fun patterns. You can do whatever you want. Basically, you're just trying to make a cut in it so that the steam goes that direction, and then you can do all kinds of designs. This is the mozzarella herb one. There's fun designs you can do. So I just create some marks in there. Really, these other ones are just decorative. The one that really matters is just the one big one. Sometimes I just do stripes back and forth. It really is up to you, and have fun with it. And then you just replace the lame every once in a while. And then the next thing I'm going to do is put the lid on both of them. And also, once I accidentally forgot that they were piping hot at 500 degrees, and I tried to pick up one of the lids without my undermitt. I wouldn't recommend that. Some people pour, or they'll like spritz with water the loaves. That gives them a little bit more of that speckly, crunchy crust. I have tried that. Some people put ice cubes in the bottom of it just to leave more steam in there. I felt like I liked the texture of it without those things, but you can experiment with that if you want. So then I'm just going to put them in the oven, turn the temperature down to 460, and bake them for 45 minutes. I think the recipe originally calls for 450 and for I think 35 minutes, but I like them with the lid on longer and then just take the lid off at the last little bit. It helps them be a little bit more soft rather than taking the lid off sooner and letting them really crisp up. But if you really like that crunchy sourdough crust, really crusty, you're going to want to bake it with the lid off for a little bit longer. I'll pause that for a minute. So once the bread comes out of the oven, it will just need to cool down for a little while. I usually have cookie sheet or cooling racks, and I put the cast iron Dutch oven on top of the cooling rack. I pull the bread out and let it just cool on a cooling rack for a while. And you are not supposed to cut into it for at least an hour so that all the steam doesn't escape and so that you don't kind of squish its structure. That's the hardest part of the whole process, is waiting that hour. I've had fair to partly cloudy results on whether I wait or not. And then once it's cooled, you can eat it right away. You can store it. I have found the best way to store bread because it just keeps it from drying out, but doesn't make it like super chewy. I freeze mine and I put them in Ziploc bags. I not to do that because it makes them more chewy, the bread more chewy. But when I just leave it out with like wrapped in a towel, it dries out really fast and you kind of have to bring it back to life, which you can do. You can run water over the loaf and then put it in the oven for a little bit and it will kind of rejuvenate it. But I still prefer having it a little bit softer, and my family likes it softer. So that's just the way I bake it, and I don't do a really dark crust on mine just because that's what my family prefers. They freeze really well, and then I would just leave it out, thaw it, and then cut right into it. It's really good toasted. Obviously, it's best when it's very fresh, but we toast ours all the time, and there's oodles of things you can do with it. If you want to gift it to someone, you can just wrap it in some parchment paper with a little bit of twine or string and kind of fold up the parchment paper around it and gift it. That's the easy way to, because it's so big, easy way to kind of package it without it being expensive. And yeah, and then you enjoy it.